last. Tell me, did it trouble you to murder your brothers?
Did it trouble you when you ordered me into the abyss?
Eternity is relentless, Raziel. Our futures are predestined. Mobius foretold mine eons ago. We each play out the parts fate has written for us. Free will is an illusion.
I found the tomb of Sarafan, Kain. How could you profane a priest by turning him into a vampire?
Who better to serve me than those whose passion transcends all notions of good and evil? You nearly had me, Raziel. But this is not where or how it ends. Fate promises more twists before this drama unfolds completely.
Redeemer and Destroyer, Pawn and Messiah. Welcome, time-span soul. Welcome to your destiny. Where am I? Is the usual question. In your case, when might be... This is completely unexpected.
I should kill you where you stand.
Perhaps you should, my boy. But you don't. That honor belongs to your maker, Kain, some 30 years from now.
Are we within the stronghold of the Sarafan priesthood?
Yes.
Is this the vampire Vorador?
Yes.
I know all about your sordid little schemes, but you're simply out of your depth on this one.
You underestimate me, Raziel. Let me show you.
What are you doing? Step blow, doing.
Come on, you blasted ribs got caught on my sleeve.
And so the Reaver met its former self, still imprisoned in this corporeal shell. I watched, mesmerized, as the wraith blade uncoiled itself and snaked down the length of the physical blade. Embracing its twin, its mirror self, the Reaver's long dormant spirit was now fully aroused. So this was the legendary Janos Ordren. This relic came to be known as the Heart of Darkness.
Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed, Janos Ordren, the Heart of Darkness restores vampiric unlife.
Feel our wrath! Strike them down! Fear the sisters getting to the front! We will be martyrs! Sisters, aim true!
The pillars of Nosgoth, pristine, whole, and uncorrupted. And there, waiting at the very heart of the pillars, was the canker that was destined to destroy them.
I know you're there, Raziel. We've been brought here for a reason. I've seen the beginning and the end of our story, however, and the tale is crude and ill-conceived. We must rewrite the ending of it. You and I. This is the sublime moment of our undoing, Raziel. The ineffable fulcrum upon which swings the entirety of our history. This is where all of Nosgoth is betrayed. In this instant, Ariel, the Balance Guardian, is murdered by dark forces bent on overthrowing the Pillars. See this.
My God.
Nupraptor plunges into a madness which overflows and infects all of the Guardians who are symbiotically bound, including me. The repercussions of Ariel's assassination were expertly calculated. The entire circle descends into madness, and I am tainted at the moment of my birth, instantly rendered incapable of fulfilling the role destiny has prepared for me.
Shall I show you the same mercy you showed the rest of the circle, then?
Let's drop the moral posturing, shall we? We both know there's no altruism in this pursuit. Your reckless indignation led you here. I counted on it. Hate me, but do it honestly.
As I entered the chamber, I sensed that it had been sealed for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. The surrounding murals depicted a winged race, their features so like my own, but beautiful, where mine were grotesque, and angelic, while mine were demonic. I tried to decipher these images. A great war, but with combatants like none I had ever seen. The Pillars, raised by this winged race, who thus defeated their adversaries. The winged beings again, writhing in agony, apparently afflicted with the same bloodthirst I had so recently suffered. And throughout the chamber, inscribed everywhere, images of the Reaver itself.
Lies, Raziel. Do not be deceived.
My ancient benefactor. And I dared to hope we had parted ways forever. Your silence was refreshing. It lasted.
Do not be insolent, Raziel.
Your hold on me appears to be tenuous. I no longer seem to need you. Yet I'm guessing you still need me.
This impudence is unworthy of you, Raziel.
I serve no one. Not you, not Kain, and not your lackey Mobius.
Mobius is my good servant. I have many.
And if I tell Mobius that he's worshipping a giant squid, do you think his faith will falter? As I neared the altar, I suddenly felt the Reaver quickening of its own volition. Just as in William's chapel, the balance of power tangibly shifted.
Darkness.
You're a ragged excuse for a savior.
Vorador.
I see my reputation precedes me.
It does.
All good, I hope? I've been watching you since you emerged from that accursed stronghold. Strange that your arrival coincides with the corruption of the Pillars. But I'm wondering, are you the catalyst of these events? Or the answer to them?
I don't know.
Are you the instrument of the Pillars' destruction, or their salvation?
Neither.
Very well.
Show yourself, Kain.
Here, Raziel. Everything is decided here. You must understand. Our presence here doesn't alter history. You and I meet here because we are compelled to. We have always met here. History is irredeemable. Drop a stone into a rushing river. The current simply courses around it and flows on as if the obstruction were never there. You and I are pebbles, Raziel, and have even less hope of disrupting the time stream. The continuum of history is simply too strong, too resilient. Except, then how do we explain William here? I destroyed a tyrant only to create one far worse. But how can it be so? How, if history is immutable? The answer is here in this room, Raziel. Mobius propelled William and me together, but ensured first that we were both armed with the Soul Reaver. The Reaver is the key. Two incarnations of the blade meet in time and space. A paradox is created, a temporal distortion powerful enough to derail history.
Is this your sorcery?
Not mine, Raziel. Yours. You have nothing to fear from me, Raziel. You hold all the cards.
Then perhaps I should test your sincerity. If what you say is true, you should be terrified. I could kill you here and now.
And so you do, Raziel.
What's happening?
We're hurtling towards our destinies, Raziel. What you feel is the pull of history rushing to meet us. This is where history and destiny collide.
This is madness.
Fight it, Raziel. This moment does not have to be an ending. It can become a prelude. I can't. You can, Raziel. Look inside and see that it is so. You have the power to reshape our inevitable futures. Poor William. History abhors a paradox, Raziel. Even now, the time stream strains to divert itself, finding its old course blocked by your refusal to destroy me. The future is reshuffling itself to accommodate your monumental decision. This is where we restore ourselves, Raziel, and reclaim our intended destinies.
You will not use me as the instrument of your messianic delusions.
Very well, Raziel. I'll not ask you to trust me. Your truths are for you to discover alone. And continue your journey and learn your own lessons, Raziel. Remember, Mobius led you here, but you walk away unfettered. Champion of free will and conqueror of false histories. There is much more for you to unearth, if you have the heart for the truth and the will to see it.
Ah, yes. Go. In there.
What are you doing?
Come now, Mobius. You're a cunning serpent. You'll piece it together, I imagine.
But I urge you to reconsider.
You've lost your powers of persuasion, old man. Rot here and forget me.
You ignorant fuck.
Raziel.
What pathetic charade is this now, Mobius?
No charade, Raziel. Only the entreaties of this martyr speak.
As I approached, I discerned the spirit of Ariel, bound here now for more than a century.
I alone was spared the descent into madness, and Kain alone was spared the pain of death. When Napraptor's poison seized Kain even in the safety of the womb, much more than just his destiny was lost. All of Nosgoth lost balance. Consider us now, both of us less than we once were. I, pure but insubstantial, and Kain, terribly real, but corrupted.
Your imprisonment here has deranged you, spirit.
He must die for the pillars to be restored. There is no other way.
Then consider this more ominous possibility. What if Kain's death does not restore the pillars, and that you may be bound here eternally?
Raziel, the failed assassin. This is the fate of Nosgoth, as long as Kain remains alive.
An ironic condemnation, given this guilty scene. One would think you'd torn down the pillars single-handedly. What are you trying to obliterate as you drag your loathsome body through this chamber? And why, as Nosgoth descends into madness and misery, do you appear to thrive?
I am the hub of the wheel, the origin of all life, the devourer of death.
Or maybe you're just hungry. Could it be as simple as that? Wouldn't that be poetic irony? The great adversary of the vampires turns out to be the biggest parasite of them all.
Hey, babe.
Beyond all hope and against all probability, it seemed that the device had unerringly delivered me to the error I sought.
By all that is holy!
Here at last, in the flesh, I beheld my former brothers in arms, the warrior priests of the Sarafan order, their lives devoted solely to the annihilation of the vampire plague.
Audrin?
It is heartening after all these years to hear my name spoken without contempt. Raziel? My child, what have they done to you?
I have been dragged through hell and back. The Reaver is here. Why do I feel nothing?
The most formidable weapon ever forged by our swordsmiths.
As Janos presented the blade, an inexplicable sense of dread crept over me, more palpable than anything I'd felt before. I was at once horribly repelled by the sword, and yet irresistibly compelled to touch it, to take it up.
I fear you have been followed. You must save yourself, Raziel. Janos! No!
Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed.
Raziel, we must get out of here!
Remember the sword!
Forgive me. I'm sorry. I failed you.
No, Razia. Perhaps this was my true purpose. Simply to save your life this once.
While I have taken yours.
Embrace your destiny, Razia. You must reclaim the Reaver. It was forged for you and you alone. Without it, there is no hope.
As I backed away from Janos's body, I was overwhelmed by a sense of self-loathing so deep I could barely contain it. In that instant, I rejected all that I ever was, and embraced the role Janos had safeguarded for me so patiently throughout the centuries. I would retake the stolen Reaver, which was rightfully mine. And finally, when all these debts had been paid, I would reclaim Janos Audrin's heart.
Reputed to have been ripped from the chest of the greatest vampire to have ever existed, Janos Audrin, the heart of darkness restores vampiric unlife.
Suddenly and inexplicably, I discovered the Reaver suspiciously laid across my path.
So, Raziel, here we are finally. You have no choice but to confront me now, and I am not so foolish as I've let you believe.
Meanwhile...
I think not, Raziel. Malik, do not let this creature leave. He poses a danger to you, sir.
There is trouble within. The circle is under attack.
Fast, Malik. This one is the real danger to us.
I admit that I've underestimated you to this point, Mobius. But it's a mistake I won't repeat.
Wrong again, Raziel. Now, Malik,
bolt the door.
Using his staff to disable my wraith blade, Mobius effectively disarmed me, leaving me with only one choice of weapon. And yet I confess, it was not the lack of options, but blind rage that made me take up the Reaver. In my fury, it felt as though my hand had acted of its own will. As Melchiah and Zephon fell before my blade, I felt the Reaver's bloodthirst as keenly as I ever had when I was still a vampire. I could sense the boundary between us dissolving. The Reaver was consumed with my rage, and I was intoxicated by its bloodlust. I could finally appreciate the delicious irony of Kain's blasphemous private joke, and I reveled as I colluded with him across the centuries. For it was I who put these bastards in their tomb, thus providing the corpses for Kain to raise as his vampire sons a millennium from now.
So, vampire, here we are. You're a righteous fiend, aren't you?
Apparently I am.
No, vampire. This is where it ends. But you won't be leaving this room. Now, let's finish this.
I renounce you. And so it ends. My history comes full circle. Sensing its twin, the wraith blade uncoiled itself from me, and instead wound lovingly round its former self. I felt its grip loosen, and as the blade left me, its absence chilled me more than its presence ever had. A foreboding sense of emptiness and loss stole over me, and a terrible revelation gathered like a storm at the edge of my awareness. With all other foes exhausted, the conjoined blades turned themselves on me, and I realized, finally, why I had sensed nothing when Janos offered me the blade. The Reaver was never forged to be a soul-stealing weapon. The ravenous, soul-devouring entity trapped in the blade was, and always had been, me. This is why the blade was destroyed when Kain tried to strike me down. The Reaver could not devour its own soul. The paradox shattered the blade. So, this was my terrible destiny. To play out this purgatorial cycle for all eternity.
Now you are free to reclaim your true destiny, Raziel.
Behind Kain's eyes, I could see new memories blooming and dying as history labored to reshuffle itself around this monumental obstruction. And I could see by the dawning horror on his face that perhaps we had strained history too far this time. that by trying to alter my fate, he may have introduced a fatal paradox.
You have won the battle, but the war between your kind and mine will never end. Our banishment in the demon dimension also ensures our immortality. One day, we shall return.
My God. The Hilden. We walked right into their trap. Raziel, Janos must stay dead.
Fulfilling the sacred mandate of the Sarafan, you are hereby damned.